Hello everyone and welcome to this short video on English Language Paper 2, Section B, Transactional Writing. Before we get started on today's question, I want to remind you of both language papers, the reading and the writing sections. Should you want to make more notes or look at this in more detail, I suggest you pause the recording until you are ready to continue. If not, we'll continue with today's question. This series of videos will go through each question from the reading and writing sections of Paper 1 and Paper 2, so you feel super confident before sitting your exams. For English Language Paper 2, Section B, Transactional Writing, you'll be... So here's an example question. We should support the British economy by only taking holidays in the UK. Write an essay explaining why you agree or disagree with the statement. And as you can see, we've got a statement to respond to and a task to complete. So let's look at what AQA would like out of an essay. So for more developed and detailed responses, they'd like an effective introduction and a convincing conclusion, and effectively fluently linked paragraphs to sequence a range of ideas. This reads very similarly to an article. You don't have to worry too much about that snappy kind of heading or kind of subheadings, but very similar in terms of content and perhaps how you would tackle this question. So what's your purpose? To inform the reader about and explain your viewpoint, perhaps to address and then dismiss opposing views. You're not trying to persuade here. Okay, so we're not thinking about persuading other people to agree with this, we're just stating our viewpoint. That might mean that some people are persuaded to our point of view, but that's not the main purpose. We want to keep this again formal, quite muted and academic. We want to think carefully about the language choices we use, and whilst we're giving our viewpoints, it's not colloquial, it doesn't become kind of chatty, it doesn't become informal. So how might you lay out your essay? So as lots of other texts we've studied, we'd have a clear introduction establishing your point of view. We're not going to tell the reader necessarily what your point is, you're going to show what your point is. You're going to have then maybe 2 to 3 ideas that are clearly sequenced with at least one example of a counter argument or an example of dismissing the opposite side. Thinking really carefully, just like those of you who've looked at the letter video, that we don't leave our reader on the final point as a counter argument, but we leave it with our strongest viewpoint. And we may include things like facts, statistics, we may have anecdotes to, again, not to persuade, but to inform and to explain our point of view. We'll then have a clear conclusion that gives a brief summary of what has been discussed. Here we have an example response that responds to the statement and the task that we've been asked. This one particularly has been taken from a Mr. Brough resource from 2017, so it's not something I've written myself, but one that I have borrowed. We look at the assessment objectives again, just a quick reminder. So AO5 is your content in your organisation. We're thinking about the actual information, the ideas that you're exploring, the viewpoint you're putting forward. We're also thinking about the layout that you've chosen for your particular text, and we're also looking to see if you have those really carefully and clearly sequenced paragraphs. For AO6, as we've done previously, again we're looking at spelling, punctuation and grammar. Although this mini-mark scheme talks about security and accuracy, yes, they are super important. We're also looking at where we could use some of these things for effect on our reader. How are we going to make our piece engaging? So here's an example, and you can see here how this person has not only used all those kind of consistently accurate spelling, punctuation and grammar moments, but they're also engaging. They've also thought very clearly about their viewpoint, and they've given a really clear conclusion at the end. Rain, coldness, boredom. These words spring to mind when I think of a holiday in the UK. What's the point of planning a summer holiday by the beach when we can't guarantee the weather? Clearly, the British tourism industry would benefit from my money, but there's nothing worse than a British seaside in the rain. I believe that we should not be pressured to take holidays just within the UK. We should make the most of opportunities to take holidays abroad. There are some people who only take holidays in the UK. My 78-year-old grandmother, for example, has never been abroad in her life. She says, what's the point in going abroad when there are so many places to visit in this country? This is a valid point. I can't claim to have visited the Orkney Islands and the Outer Hebrides. I will, one day. They're on my list, but there are just so many other places I want to visit first. I want to ride a camel to the Pyramid of Giza, trek in the amazing Amazon jungle, bask in the blazing sun of a beach in the Bahamas. Yes, There's a lot we can do in the UK, but there's also a lot we can do elsewhere. I need to stress that I'm not unpatriotic. On a gloriously sunny day, I love the natural beauty of the Lake District, the craggy mountains of Scotland and Wales, and the busy historic cities and towns that form the rich tapestry of our cultural heritage. I just don't like rain. It's a well-known fact that on average there are 107 days of rainfall in the UK a year. 107 days! That's nearly 1 day in every 3. That's a third of my life. I spend so much of my time shivering in school or huddled against the gas fire at home in our tiny flat that I dream of being somewhere sunny. Surely I have the right to look forward to a holiday in a hot country. Furthermore, we all know that after Brexit, the UK will become more isolated from mainland Europe. Travelling with unrestricted movement across Europe, now is the time to make the most of opportunities while they last. I believe that we can learn a lot about other people and cultures through travel. I believe that travel broadens the mind. I was hoping to cut costs and do my degree in European University. Unfortunately, that won't be happening anymore. So, excited and passionate about foreign travel, I shall close my ears to those who think I should stay in the UK. I intend to go backpacking around Europe this summer. I'm going to practice my French and German, which I'm hoping to study at university, and most of all, I'm going to enjoy the sun. So you can see here, it is almost like an article in the way that it has addressed the reader, but although it is giving lots of ideas and lots of opinions, it's not trying to persuade me necessarily to agree with them, it's just putting their point of view across. Yes, there is perhaps a counter argument in there, which they then have successfully argued against. They've also included some anecdotes, and they've also given a little bit of their own personal flair. It's a really good example of what an essay could look like. And finally, I want to look at some proposals of an essay structure that you have looked at in class. So we might begin with that descriptive hook. We might begin by describing the scene, which is relevant to the question. Although we're not just going to state our view whether we agree or disagree, we should have a viewpoint that is implied by the description, by your opening. Remember to show, not tell your reader. You might ask your reader to imagine a scene, for example. Think really carefully about the position you are taking. What is your position on the given issue? What is the overview, in your opinion, about this topic and the issues that you think are relevant to the particular position? And how do you think that this is a relevant question or a relevant statement, a controversial topic perhaps, to explore within modern society? Why is it relevant to your reader today, and why should people be thinking about that particular issue? For those first 2 or 3, this is why some students choose to write in a persona. They're not writing as a 16-year-old sat in an exam, they've taken on a persona, a really interesting perspective that they might choose to write as to help them kind of shape some of these ideas. Because then you get to the now. By this point, you will have thought about the problem, you'll have given your viewpoint over, and now you must offer a solution. Again, it's not simply good enough just to describe how you feel or what that solution would be. I want you to think about a call to action. What would you like your reader to take away from reading your essay? What are they going to actually actively go and do? What would you like them to think about? Why have you bothered writing this essay in the first place? What is that message you want to share? So I hope you found this video really useful at looking at essays when it comes to the language paper. I hope perhaps you have joined us for some of the other videos and continue to watch these to make sure you feel super prepared for question 5.